The Daily Code Snippet. We just learned how to position an image in relation to a line of text. How would we instead place text on top of an image? Here are the scenarios that we will go over. We have our sample image. We would like to place a label for that image in different positions on the image. Top left, bottom left, centered, top right, and bottom right. In our page, we have placed these options in different sections. In each section, we have an H3 heading element, an image element, and a div element with our label. Let's look at the HTML first. The div of the first section has a class attribute with the value of texttopleft. We see that in each section, the value of the class attribute changes. This is so we can target each label with a unique CSS to position the label in a different place with each option. Now we can look at the CSS. We see that we have relatively positioned our section element. Our image has a width of 100% and a height of auto. It will be responsive. The image will always be the full width of the containing element. Now we will look at the CSS for each of our labels. Certain CSS rules remain unchanged from option to option. Number 1, that our div will be absolutely positioned. Number 2, that our font weight is increased to bold to help the text be more legible over an image. In the case of a text toward the top of the image, we have given it a black color, but towards the center and bottom of the image, we have given it a white color. What changes is how we further offset the label div from the top, right, bottom, and left edges, depending on the position of our label. So for label divs closer to the top of the image, we adjust the top offset property. And for the label divs closer to the bottom of the image, we adjust the bottom offset property. And we do the same for the left and right side of the image. Now, the reason we add more distance for the top labels than the bottom labels is because we have added space towards the top for the H3 heading element. Remember, our offset is based on the section element, and the reason we add more distance for the top offset for the top left than for the top right is because our first section has added padding to add some distance between the first section and the navigation. To center text over an image, we offset the text 50% from the top and from the left. The reason we add another CSS rule, transform, translate, parentheses, minus 50%, comma, minus 50%, close parentheses, semicolon, is because when we move the text element, we are not moving the element from its center, but its upper left corner. So in order to truly center it, we use the transform property to translate its position further 50% of the object's width and height. Note, this is centering the text over the section div. To truly center it over the image, we may want to add additional distance from the top to account for the H3 heading element. Why do we need to make the section element relatively positioned? When we make the div with our label absolutely positioned, it will do this in relation to the nearest positioned div. If our section element is static, it will instead absolutely position relative to the body element. You can see the result of this in this image. So remember, when using this method, you need to make sure your containing or parent element is relatively positioned. This week, let's start by talking about how to load a background image into an element. In order to do this, we will use the background image property. This property can be used to load in one or more images into a single element. It is always good practice to set a background color for the element as well, just in case the image is not available. To set the background image, we use this syntax. URL indicates we will tell the browser where to find the image. In this example, we have also set a background color, a light gray color. The default for a background image is to be placed at the top left corner of an element and repeated both vertically and horizontally. By setting a background repeat, you can have the image not repeat. So in our example, we have added a CSS rule for background repeat and set it to no-repeat. When using more than one image, separate them using a comma. And you can also indicate whether you want to repeat the background image or not by using a comma to separate your commands. In this example with two images, the first image will not repeat, but the second image will repeat. Next, we will look at an example of this code in use. Presented by Designers Learn Code.